Hello and welcome to this Philbert Flies review of Macco Simulation's Manchester Airport scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Some of you will remember that I did a preview video of this scenery when it was in early access several months back. Well, it's come on a long way since then, it's out of early access, and today we're having a look at version 1, which is available to purchase from the marketplace as well as via Macco Simulation's website. And as always, I'm starting with an approach, this time to runway 23 right, to give you a look at the surrounding area and the opportunity to gauge the performance of the add-on on my system. You can find my system specs and graphics settings in the video description down below. Don't be put off by the stuttering when we touch down. I didn't see this in the sim, and it's just something that happens with my video recording software from time to time. I'll let you watch the landing in peace, and I'll speak to you again when we're parked up at a gate. From there, I'll show you around the airport in different weather and lighting conditions, looking at the good bits and the bad bits, and I'll finish up by giving you my overall opinion on it. Welcome to Manchester. We're parked up on stand 106 at Terminal 2's Pier 1, and we'll start by having a look at the jetway connecting to the aircraft. Now, being a default jetway, you'll notice that it connects absolutely perfectly. There are plans to add custom model jetways to this airport in the future, but as things stand, it's the default models that you will get. Let's take a look at some of the modelling and texturing of the airport buildings now, and we'll start with this structure here to which the jetway is connected. Still not entirely sure what these are called. Anyway, it is very nicely modelled. We've got a good amount of detail included, particularly down at the bottom here. I'm a big fan of these railings, this little electrical cabinet, and the signage on the door and around the side, and this is all true to life, so that's really impressive. In terms of the textures, they are nice and crisp. You won't notice any blurriness even if you get up super close, but they are a little bit clean looking. The quality of the weathering varies across the airport with the different buildings, and this is certainly the shiniest and the newest looking. So to me, the textures are just a little bit too uniform and clean, but nonetheless pretty good. Moving on to the Pier 1 building itself, and once again we've got some really nice details included. The stand signage looks fantastic, these sunshades look excellent, and the roof on top here looks really good as well. Excellent use of PBR materials which reflect the light very realistically indeed. This pier features tinted transparent glass which looks great from both inside and out, and an incredibly detailed high-resolution terminal interior. Macco plan to replace the opaque window textures, which are currently to be found across most of the rest of the airport, with transparent glass, and to add further interior modelling in due course. However, it's unlikely to be this detailed due to the performance impact, and will probably look more like the interior of the eastern part of Terminal 3, which I'll show you shortly. The older part of Terminal 2 looks incredible. I really like the textures here. We've got some nice old weathered concrete, and even when you get really close, absolutely no blurriness whatsoever. So super high resolution textures that really do look like they would in the real world. Once again, the roof looks very good, and I'm very impressed by this 3D Manchester sign. The opaque window textures on Terminal 2 are a mixed bag. It's a tale of two halves. So these black ones here, to my mind, don't look too bad at all. They're nicely reflective and they can just about convince me that they are windows. On the part which joins this old part of Terminal 2 to the new pier, however, we've got this greeny blue, very, very shiny texture used, and I'm really not a fan of it at all. It just doesn't look the part, and I'd prefer to see it replaced with the black we saw just before. However, it is worth remembering that these are temporary and will be replaced with transparent glass and a modelled interior in due course. The opaque glass here on Terminal 1 looks quite a lot better in my opinion. It's a convincing shade of green and once again nicely reflective. Moving on to this pier, you'll see that again we have very crisp textures and we have parallax used to mimic the effect of a terminal interior. Once again though, this is a stand-in and will be replaced by a fully modelled interior in due course. Again, I'm really impressed with the level of detail. We've got some really nice texture work down here with chips in the paint on these beams, and I really like this fenced walkway as well. The texture work on Terminal 1's Pier C is very impressive. I really love the weathering on these upper parts of the jetways, and once again we've got some really nice weathered, crisp concrete textures on the building itself. This heptagonal section at the end of the pier doesn't look quite as good as the rest of it. The windows aren't quite right, the roof looks a little bit odd, particularly around the corners, and it could do with a bit of an overhang, a little bit of guttering, and just a little bit more detailing. But this is really being quite nitpicky, and I don't think most people pulling up here in an aircraft would notice anything wrong with it. Terminal 3 is looking lovely, the opaque glass looks pretty convincing, and I'm very impressed indeed by these corrugated metal structures sticking out from it. The weathering is superb and there are no jagged edges around the sides, which is pretty rare. And here at the eastern end of Terminal 3, you can see the kind of transparent glass and interior modelling that Macco plan to carry over to the rest of the airport in due course. While it isn't as detailed or quite as impressive as what we saw on Terminal 2's Pier 1, it still looks pretty good from outside and is a significant improvement on any of the opaque window textures. This is Manchester's cargo terminal and apron, and the building looks every bit as good as the passenger terminals do. What impresses me most about this part of the airport is the sheer volume and variety of ground clutter. It really does look like a busy cargo apron. The peripheral buildings are all looking fantastic. We've got a very impressive looking control tower here with transparent glass and a little bit of interior modelling, and it has some fantastic concrete textures on the outside as well. Really crisp, really nicely weathered. Couldn't ask for more. The hangars look incredible as well. Again, beautiful modelling, fantastic texturing, very lifelike indeed. Overall, the ground textures at this airport are pretty good. The materials used and their colours match the airport pretty closely, albeit not perfectly. We do have a few areas where we have satellite ground textures bleeding through. You'll notice the ghost aeroplane under our current parking position, and that's a little bit of a shame. But what I do like is the fact that they are nice and crisp, and we've got a good amount of dirt around and about the place. If you look at it from high up, you will notice a fair amount of repetition with the dirt, but as I was taxiing in and in general airport operations, you're not going to notice this. Macco have even included repairs to the taxiways which match the real airport, such as these areas of tarmac around stand 70. And again, this light coloured section of taxiway here appears to be present in the real airport as well, so that's really very impressive attention to detail. The ground markings are absolutely superb. The taxiway centre lines look exactly like the real airport, as do the stand numbers and everything else that's marked on the ground around the airport. The grassy areas in general look absolutely fantastic. There is a combination of auto-generated grass which looks very realistic, like this section here, and grass which has had to be manually placed, which looks a little bit more uniform and not quite as realistic. But this was necessary to cover up areas of building work in the satellite imagery, which would have looked considerably worse. The 3D taxiway signs are crisp and easy to read. The runway textures look absolutely incredible. They might be the best I've ever seen. If you compare this runway 23 right and 5 left with the satellite imagery, you'll notice that it looks exactly the same. The rubber marking is incredibly accurate, the repairs are spot on, the runway markings are spot on. Yeah, it's really breathtakingly good. The landside entrances look nice, if not amazing. It's good to see some properly textured ground and some elevated roadways. We've got a little bit of transparent glass, and we've got some 3D vehicles. This is Terminal 2's entrance, by the way. And this is Terminal 1's entrance, which if anything looks slightly better. There are some slight oddities such as the corrugated metal textures not matching up around this corner here, but the signage looks nice, the opaque glass reflects the light nicely, and overall pretty good. The Radisson Blu Hotel has been included and looks absolutely fantastic, and the Skylink has been included as well. We also have multi-storey car parks and a few other buildings scattered around the exterior of the airport. The night lighting at Manchester is a bit of a mixed bag. I really like the apron lighting across the airport. It looks very, very realistic. I'm a big fan of the light emanating through the transparent glass here at Terminal 2's Pier 1. I like the variation in the colour temperature of the light across the airport. The taxiway and runway lighting is absolutely fantastic. What I'm less of a fan of is the opaque window textures by night, particularly these turquoisey greeny ones. They don't look very realistic at all. But as I mentioned earlier, they are temporary and will be replaced by transparent glass in due course. I'm also not a fan of these black window textures by night, which don't show any signs of being lit from within at all. So that's something that I wouldn't mind seeing worked on in the interim. And over at Terminal 1, once again, we have quite a few unlit windows and quite a few more windows that have this shiny turquoisey texture. But as you can see from this aerial view, the ground lighting really is absolutely fantastic. Here's Manchester in the rain, which is a situation you'll experience quite a lot if you fly on live weather, and the ground textures look absolutely fantastic. We do have the usual Asobo issue of the transparent glass windows popping rather than being shrouded in mist as they should be, but it's no worse here than anywhere else, and that's something that I hope Asobo will fix quite soon. And here's Manchester in the snow. I'm really quite impressed with what Macco have achieved here. It's not easy to get snow to look realistic in this sim, but with one or two exceptions, they've managed it. The apron areas look fantastic, they have a good covering of snow, but we can still make out the gaps between the slabs, and the ground markings are partially covered. The covering on the taxiways is variable across the airport, and on the runways the snow is limited to the edges. There are one or two spots where no snow has settled and which look odd as a result, like this pointing hand here, but there are far fewer of them than at most add-on airports I've reviewed. I'd like to see the runways and taxiways clearer of snow than they are, but the overall effect is significantly more realistic than what most developers have achieved. So what do I think of Macco Simulations Manchester? I think it's very good. It's not perfect, but nor would Macco claim it's perfect. There's more work to be done, and given the progress that has been made since the early access build was first released, I've no doubt that it will continue to improve. Let's get the negatives out the way first. Some of the building textures are a little bit flat, plain and clean looking. There are the opaque window textures, which are of variable quality and none of which look great by night. But we know they're going to be replaced with transparent glass eventually. And finally, there's the odd spot of modelling, like the heptagonal bit on the end of Pier C, which is a bit too boxy and basic. A little more detail would make it look a lot more realistic. But the list of positives is much longer. The bulk of the modelling is fantastically detailed and very accurate. The building textures are all super crisp, and most of them are very nicely weathered as well. The ground textures and ground markings are great, with some very realistic patches of dirt and some super accurate tarmac repairs. Then there are the runways, which as I said are possibly the most realistic looking I've ever seen. I love the amount of ground clutter, particularly around the cargo apron, and all of this combines to create a very atmospheric airport. And I don't normally mention prices, but this airport is such a bargain that I have to. It's available for only £10 if you buy it directly from Macco's website, slightly more if you buy it through the marketplace. While it may not quite be up there with the very best sceneries from the likes of Fly Tampa or Joe Erland, from a value for money standpoint, I think you'll find it hard to beat. So there you have it. I hope you found this review useful. If you have, please click the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon here on Filbert Flies. Bye bye.